Let me walk you through it. We live in a world where reactions are instant. Someone cuts you off in traffic, you flip out. Your partner says something you don't like, you snap back. A coworker throws shade, you fire off a passive-aggressive email. That's reacting, but here's the thing. Reactions are emotional reflexes. They're based on instinct, not instinct. And while they may feel good in the moment, they often leave behind regret, damage, or misunderstanding. Now let's talk about responding. Responding is different. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about managing them. It's about taking a breath, creating space, getting clear before you get loud. Because every time you pause, you take your power back. You're not letting that rude comment hijack your dignity. You're not allowing someone's chaos to become your character. You're choosing to stand in control instead of being dragged by your impulses. Let me be clear. You're allowed to feel everything, but you don't have to act on everything. Feel anger? Sure, but don't throw it like a grenade. Feel hurt? Of course, but don't bleed on people who didn't cut you. This isn't weakness. This is strength. Quiet strength, grown strength, the kind that doesn't need to shout to be heard or rage to be respected. It's easy to pop off, anyone can do that, but real confidence, real leadership, real growth, that shows up when you choose your response instead of letting the moment choose it for you. So how do you train your mind to respond and not react? Start small. Next time someone irritates you, ask yourself, is this worth my peace? When you're triggered, breathe before you speak. Count to 5 if you have to. Get curious, not confrontational. Because most of the time, what you're reacting to isn't even about you. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is progress. Every pause is practice. Every intentional response is a win. Because responding doesn't just protect your peace. It shapes your legacy. It influences how people see you, how you lead, and how you love. So train your mind, not just for the heat of the moment, but for the peace that follows. Choose response over reaction and watch your world shift. Thank you. Your feelings are valid, but they're not always accurate. That's a tough truth most of us have to learn the hard way. Emotions can be loud. They can be overwhelming. And they can feel so real that we mistake them for reality. But here's the truth. Emotions are data, not direction. They are there to inform you, not to control you. When we treat emotions like commands instead of signals, we end up letting them run the show. Anger tells us to lash out. Fear tells us to hide. Jealousy pushes us to compare. But if you make decisions based on that first wave of emotion, you risk building a life based on instability. Temporary emotions should never hold permanent power over your decisions. Think about it. How many arguments have escalated because someone reacted to a feeling that passed 10 minutes later? How many relationships have been damaged by words said in a moment of hurt or anger? And how often have you felt something deeply only to realize later, after the storm passed, that it wasn't entirely true? That's the trap of letting your emotions be your boss. Now, this isn't about emotional suppression. It's not about ignoring how you feel or pretending to be unfazed. It's about emotional awareness and discipline. It's about recognizing that just because you're feeling something doesn't mean you have to act on it right away. Emotions are like notifications. They pop up to get your attention. Hey, something's not right. Hey, you need rest. Hey, that hurt. And when you see them as messengers, you give yourself room to observe without obeying. You ask questions instead of making assumptions. You respond instead of react. Here's the shift. You stop being led by your emotions and you start learning from them. Anger might be telling you a boundary has been crossed. Anxiety might be signaling uncertainty or a need for preparation. Even sadness might be revealing something that matters deeply to you. But your job isn't to blindly follow those feelings. It's to sit with them long enough to understand what they're trying to say. Then make a clear-headed decision from that place of understanding, not from the surge of emotion itself. You get to decide who leads, your values or your mood, your mission or your emotion. And the more you train your mind to pause, to question, to breathe, you become less reactive and more responsive. You stop giving temporary feelings permanent authority. So the next time emotion knocks at your door, hear it out. Let it speak. But don't hand it the keys to your decisions. Let your principles be your compass, not your emotional weather. Because emotions are here to guide you, not govern you. And when you start leading your emotions instead of being led by them, everything changes. That's not cold, that's not robotic, that's emotional intelligence. That's growth. Let's be honest, we all react. It's part of being human. Someone says something disrespectful and we snap back. A situation feels unfair and we go straight into defense mode. It's fast, it's emotional, and it usually happens without thinking. That's reacting, automatic. It comes from that primal part of us, the part wired for survival, for quick decisions, for fight or flight. But here's the problem. Not everything in life is a threat. Not every disagreement needs a war. And not every tough moment deserves the weight of your full emotional firepower. When you react, you give away control. You hand your power to the situation, to the person, to the mood of the moment. Your peace, your clarity, your emotional balance, gone. Because you let the trigger pull you instead of you pausing to pull back. But responding, that's different. Responding is intentional. It's a skill. It's a practice of awareness, patience, and maturity. It doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you've trained yourself not to be ruled by what you feel in the first 5 seconds. When you respond, you step back, you breathe, you process, you ask, is this worth my energy? What's really going on here? What outcome do I want? You give yourself space to act from clarity, not chaos. Reacting feels powerful in the moment, but it's temporary power with long-term consequences. Responding may feel slower, quieter, but it's stronger, it's grounded, and it puts you back in the driver's seat. Think about the difference in real life. Someone criticizes you publicly. A reaction would be to fire back, match their tone, maybe embarrass them like they embarrassed you. But a response might be to ask calmly, can we take this offline? Or what made you feel that way? Suddenly, you're leading the conversation, not losing yourself in it. One is impulsive, the other is powerful. Because real power isn't loud, it isn't fast. Real power is measured, controlled, directed. It shows up in the pause between trigger and action. You don't have to react to everything that offends you. You don't have to respond to every invitation to conflict. Most of the time, the real flex is in how calmly you can handle the chaos around you. Responding isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the strength to feel something deeply and still choose your words carefully, to be angry and still be kind, to be frustrated but not reckless. The truth is, life is full of moments that will test you. People will press your buttons, situations will stir up your emotions, and your mind will want to run wild. But how you handle those moments, that's where your growth shows. So train yourself to slow down. Breathe before you speak. Think before you act. Learn the difference between what needs a reaction and what deserves a response. Because when you choose to respond with intention, you take your power back. And that's not just emotional control, it's emotional leadership. That small pause before you speak, before you act, before you press send, that's where everything changes. It may only last a few seconds, but in those seconds you create space. And in that space, you make a choice. Do I react out of emotion, or do I respond with intention? Do I let this situation define me, or do I define how I'll handle it? That pause is where maturity lives, because anyone can react. That's easy, that's automatic. But choosing to pause, that takes emotional discipline. That takes awareness. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. When you pause, you're not running from the moment. You're anchoring yourself in it. You're giving your nervous system a chance to calm down. You're giving your thoughts time to catch up with your emotions. You're separating what you feel from what you want to do next. That's where self-respect begins. Because the pause is what stops you from saying things you'll regret. It's what prevents you from making impulsive decisions in a moment of stress or anger. It's what allows you to hold your ground without losing your character. The truth is, the world will try to rush you. People will provoke you. Some will push your buttons just to see you explode. But the pause, that's what keeps you centered. That's what gives you time to ask, is this worth my energy? Or what outcome do I really want here? Let me be clear, the pause isn't passive, it's powerful. It's an active choice to stay in control, to protect your peace, and to lead with clarity instead of chaos. And the more you practice it, the stronger you get. Start noticing the difference between problems that need your voice and distractions that deserve your silence. You stop allowing urgency to override your values. You begin leading your emotions instead of being led by them. Whether you're in a tense conversation, a heated argument, or a high-pressure situation, the pause becomes your greatest tool. It helps you respond like the person you're becoming, not the one you're trying to outgrow. Because every time you pause, you're telling yourself, I don't need to rush to prove a point. I don't need to match their energy. I don't need to fight to be heard. I'm already enough. Calm, clear, and grounded. That's what power looks like. Not the loudest voice, not the quickest comeback, but the person who can stand in the middle of emotional noise and still choose peace over pride. So when the moment feels heated, when your heart is racing, when your ego wants to take the wheel, pause. That's your moment of power. That's where growth happens. And that simple pause, it could be the difference between chaos and clarity, regret and respect, reaction and response. Train it. Trust it. Because the pause isn't a delay. It's your decision to lead. One of the hardest lessons in life is realizing this. You can't control other people. You can't make them respect you. You can't force them to be kind. You can't dictate how they show up, how they treat you, or how they respond when things get uncomfortable. People will provoke, they'll pressure, they'll project their own pain, insecurity, or dysfunction onto you. And if you're not careful, you'll start carrying what was never yours to begin with. But here's where your power lives. In mastering yourself, you may not control their behavior, but you are fully in charge of your response. You get to decide if you'll absorb the negativity or rise above it. You choose whether to engage in chaos or protect your peace. That's your lane. That's where your influence begins and where their control ends. Because your peace doesn't have to be their playground. Not everyone deserves a response. Not every situation requires your energy. When someone is trying to pull you into their storm, sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is not go. Stay grounded, stay calm, stay clear. That doesn't make you passive, it makes you wise. Control is an illusion when it comes to others, but self-mastery, that's real. That's the work. It's saying, I won't let your mood shift mine. I won't let your pressure force me out of alignment. I won't let your projections rewrite my worth. It's learning how to sit with your triggers instead of unleashing them. It's recognizing when you're being baited and choosing not to bite. It's understanding that your response, your tone, your presence, your restraint can often say more than your words ever could. And here's the thing, you don't owe people your chaos just because they handed you theirs. You owe yourself peace, you owe yourself clarity, and you owe yourself the dignity of not being dragged down to someone else's level just to prove a point. When you master yourself, you stop needing to control the outside world. You stop obsessing over what others think, say, or do. You find freedom in your own discipline. You build emotional boundaries, and you become unshakable, not because life gets easier, but because you've trained your mind to stay steady. People will still be who they are. Some will criticize, some will gossip, some will test you. Let them. That's their story. But you're writing a different one. One rooted in awareness, one shaped by self-respect, one led by response, not reaction. So no, you can't control others, but the moment you stop trying and start mastering how you show up, everything shifts. And that's not weakness, that's power. Because true strength isn't about dominating others. It's about disciplining yourself so well no one else ever gets to, ever again. We live in a world that often confuses silence with weakness. People assume that if you're quiet, you've lost. That if you're not defending yourself, you must be guilty. That if you don't clap back, you don't care. But here's the truth most people miss. Silence is not surrender, it's a strategy. Because sometimes saying less protects more. It protects your energy. Not every argument is worth your breath. Not every opinion needs your reaction. When you choose silence, you're saying, I value my peace more than I value being right in this moment. That's not passive. That's powerful. Silence protects your clarity. When emotions are running high, the smartest move isn't always speaking up, it's stepping back. Giving yourself space to breathe, letting the dust settle. Because words spoken in heat are rarely remembered for wisdom, they're remembered for damage. Silence gives you time to respond, not react. And that pause, that's where your clarity lives. And most importantly, silence protects your reputation. You don't need to defend yourself in every room against every whisper or in front of every critic. Let people talk. Let them assume. Let them misunderstand. The people who know your heart don't need an explanation, and the ones who don't won't believe it anyway. You don't prove your strength by how loudly you speak. You prove it by how intentionally you stay silent. Think about it. Some of the most powerful moments in life come when we don't respond. When we hear the insult, feel the disrespect, sense the bait, and choose to stay calm anyway. Not because we're ignoring it, but because we're rising above it. That's strategy. That's emotional maturity. That's wisdom. Silence gives you room to observe what others miss. When you're not busy trying to be heard, you can listen. You can read the room. You can understand what's really being said beneath the surface. And that understanding, that's influence. because the one who sees clearly always holds the advantage. But let's be honest, silence takes strength. It's not easy to hold your tongue when your ego wants to lash out. It's not easy to walk away when your pride wants the last word. It takes real inner control to say, I don't need to win this moment. I'm focused on a bigger picture. And that's what silence gives you, perspective. Because the loudest person isn't always the strongest. The one who holds their ground without shouting, without proving, without reacting, that's the one who's truly in control. So don't let anyone shame your silence. Don't let noise distract you from your peace. Don't feel obligated to answer every call to conflict. Sometimes your silence is the answer. Sometimes your restraint is the message. And sometimes walking away from the drama, the debate, the dysfunction, that's not losing. That's leadership. So the next time you're tempted to defend, to explain, to engage, pause. Remember, silence isn't weakness. Let's be real. The way we handle tense moments defines everything. Our relationships, our leadership, and our reputation. And in those moments, you always have two choices. You can react or you can respond. Reacting is fast. It's emotional. It's driven by ego and impulse. Responding is thoughtful. It's grounded. It's led by awareness and wisdom. And the difference between the two, it can be the difference between building a bridge or burning one. When you react, you're often trying to protect yourself. That's understandable. We're wired to defend. But defense can quickly turn into destruction. A careless word, a sharp tone, a rushed decision. It may feel justified in the moment, but it can create long-term damage. You may win the argument, but lose the trust. You may prove your point, but destroy the connection. That's what reaction does. It burns. But when you respond, you step back and look at the bigger picture. You ask yourself, what's more important here? Being right or being understood? Proving a point or preserving the relationship? You slow down, you choose your words with intention, you think beyond the heat of now and into the impact of later. That's what builds bridges. Because whether it's in a personal relationship, a team setting, or a heated conflict, people don't just remember what you said. They remember how you made them feel. A calm response, even in the middle of disagreement, sends a clear message. I respect myself enough to stay composed. And I respect you enough to stay present. That doesn't mean letting people walk over you. It doesn't mean holding back your truth. Responding isn't about being soft. It's about being smart. It's knowing that emotional control isn't weakness, it's leadership. And here's the thing. Anyone can react. That takes no skill. But to respond with grace, with clarity, with restraint, that takes strength. That takes maturity. That takes emotional intelligence. Every time you respond intentionally, you build something. Trust, respect, connection. You show others and yourself that you don't let the moment define your behavior, you define it. So when tensions rise, ask yourself, will my next move build or break? Will it connect or create distance? Will it reflect who I am or who I'm trying to outgrow? The people who lead with response over reaction are the ones who leave lasting impact. They're the ones who get remembered not for how loud they were, but for how steady they stayed. Not for how they dominated, but for how they elevated everyone around them. Because in the end, reaction burns short-term fires. Response lights long-term paths. So choose wisely. because every interaction is an opportunity to either tear down or to build up, to either escalate or de-escalate, to either wound or heal. And when you train yourself to respond, you're not just protecting your peace, you're building a legacy. At the end of the day, life will test you, people will push buttons, situations will trigger emotions, and challenges will come when you least expect them. But your power isn't found in how loud you can react, it's found in how calmly you can respond. Every pause, every breath, every moment you choose clarity over chaos is a step toward mastering yourself. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. Because your peace is too valuable to be handed over to every provocation. Your energy is too sacred to be wasted on every conflict. And your reputation is too important to be shaped by impulsive reactions. Emotions are not the enemy, they are messengers, but they are not meant to be in control. When you stop giving them the steering wheel, you start making decisions that reflect growth, not just gut instinct. To train your mind, choose response over reaction, not just for others, but for yourself, for your integrity, for your future, because how you respond shapes everything. Your relationships, your leadership, your legacy. Thank you for listening, and thank you for choosing growth.